All right, Coach Drew, today we're talking top quarterbacks in the Big Ten for the 2026 season. And ranked number one on our list is Julian Sayin from Ohio State. There are other quarterbacks that are going to be really productive, but how do we put anyone ahead of last year's Heisman finalist from the Buckeyes, who was fantastic in his freshman outing? Ohio State was second in our Midwest Blitz 2025 Big Ten passing game composite ratings, which takes into account what you did against the best competition and what you did in meaningful game situations like on third down. We'll get back to that here in a second, but you got a Heisman finalist returning coach. He's got the best receiver in the country on his team, probably one of the best receiver rooms in the country, which we're going to get to when we rank Big Ten wide receiver rooms. But I still think, and I see other pundits who I respect say that Sayin still has room for growth. I mean, think about the fact that he really didn't play in a super close game till the end of last season, and those end of game situations are obviously meaningful against quality opponents. I think that his pocket presence under pressure is going to improve after the Indiana game, after the Miami game, because that gives him film to study, things that he can learn. The big game experience is always huge, especially for any freshman player, let alone one with his skill and talent level coming into next season. One of the things I love about Julian Sayin, and the reason that I expect him to continue to ball out for the Buckeyes, is his proper use of eyes and his passing accuracy. This guy, as a freshman last year, Coach Drew, is really good at manipulating safeties and sticking with, in concept, we're going to have a guy in the slot who runs a vertical route. And we know that Jeremiah Smith is then going to come underneath there. So it's kind of a clear out concept. And Sayin has the discipline with his eyes to look that safety down, to make him move, to create space, to layer the ball on these intermediate throws, which is something that a lot of seniors who are highly regarded really aren't that good at the college level. And this is what pro scouts look for. Obviously, Sayin's not going to go pro after next season because he'll only be in his sophomore year of eligibility. His maturity in those little things like use of eyes and layering the ball on intermediate routes is something that NFL scouts really like, and that the Heisman voters are going to find really valuable next year as well. Last year, this Buckeye passing game led by Sayin, they were second in touchdowns versus conference opponents. They were second in quarterback ranking versus conference opponents. They were second in yards per attempt versus ranked opponents, Coach Drew. And they were tied for third on third and medium conversions. You know, to say that they were third on third and medium conversions, you got to think a team like Ohio State, a team like Indiana, a team like Oregon, they're playing with the lead most of the time. So that would account for why they're not number one, because you're running the ball more and you're doing different things with the lead in the second half than you would be if you were behind. But they were top three, as I just said, in all of the meaningful game situation metrics that we use for our composite rankings. I think that the sky's the limit next year. I will say this, I almost think that his numbers, some of his numbers might not be on a surface level as good or better next year. They could dip a little, but he could still be a better player, and this Buckeye offense could still be better if they button up some things in the running game, which will make it easier for him to succeed at the end of the season when you get into a college football playoff scenario, a potential Big Ten championship game scenario. And let's go back to the metrics that we looked at. Second, third. He's behind Fernando Mendoza is the guy who he's trailing in most of these metrics, and Mendoza's gone. So this, to me, is a passing of the torch to the best quarterback in the conference, probably being Julian Sayin next year. You got Jeremiah Smith back. You lost Carnell Tate. But this Devin McEwen from University of Texas San Antonio and this Kyle Parker that the Buckeyes got in from LSU, these guys are ballers, Coach Drew. He's got weapons galore next year. They got two tight ends in the transfer portal who I really liked, one from Northwestern, the other one from the Ohio Bobcats, who have slightly different skill sets. This tight end room is going to be good, even though they lost Max Clare. Now, let's talk about this. You got a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is going to be a better play caller than Brian Hartline. I talked to a friend of the show, Buckeye Wyatt, about potential play calling differences last year versus this year, or even 2 years ago when they had Chip Kelly as the play caller. And one of the things Buckeye Wyatt pointed out that I think listeners will find interesting is that you got Brian Hartline as your play caller. Well, he's a wide receiver coach, passing game guy. Like you always say, Coach Drew, when you get, like in the NFL, you get a defensive head coach, he wants to run the ball and pound you on the defensive end. So there's different styles of play calling. And I think Arthur Smith being from the NFL level, every game's a big game in the NFL. In college football, how many games a year is a team like Ohio State actually expecting to get challenged in? The same things that allow you to dominate during the regular season against opponents, whether they're conference opponents or not, are not necessarily the things that are going to win you a championship in this new playoff format. I think you're going to have an upgrade at play calling. I look for Arthur Smith to establish a better running game on early downs. You guys will hear more about that when we get to our Big Ten top running back rooms segment, which we'll publish pretty soon. But this Buckeye passing game is going to be top-notch in the country again, one of the best on paper and in real game situations. I look for a retooled approach to the running game, especially on early downs. I want to say this. I've heard some people give Sayin flack for how the Miami game went. You had no run game in the first half of that game. They had -3 rushing yards at halftime, if I recall correctly. You had to play catch up the entire second half. You had the pick six to Miami's star/slot receiver, the hybrid safety guy, that I thought was a bad play call. And, Ryan Day, Hartline, the whole staff, I felt like they got out-coached by Cristobal and the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes came on strong at the end of last year. That's not to throw shade at the Buckeyes, but I don't put any blame on Julian Sayin for how that game went last year. I felt like Miami had a better game plan. I think the lack of running game was really tough for Ohio State. Just like, in the Big Ten Championship game, that's kind of what cost them, was the ability to establish the run. Sayin's going to be lights out in 2026. I think that Ohio State fans are going to love McCune from UTSA, and you're going to love Parker from LSU. Now, I know, Coach Drew, some guys and, some Buckeye fans or some Big Ten fans might be like, UTSA, Texas San Antonio, go put the tape on of Devin McCune. This kid is an elite athlete. This guy is going to produce next year. What do you think about Sayin in the Buckeye passing game going into 2026, Coach Drew?
I think they set him up for success. I mean, yes, they're losing Cardell Tate, and they're losing some other potential players that had a big impact last year. But here's the thing, like you said, when we're doing these rankings, we're giving our roses to the people who, were part of the Heisman conversation, who were part of this. And Julian Sayin, Super Saiyan, we call him down here Super Saiyan, right? He's a sophomore. He's thrown to possibly the number 1 pick in the 2027 draft. As we're recording this, the 2026 draft hasn't happened yet. But, people are already trying to get stock for that one-on-one so they can go get Smith. I can't remember the last time. Well, they did have Marvin Harrison, but I'm not delving too far into the NFL. But they've had some really good guys. I think watching Julian Sayin last year when he was doing his interviews, this kid was straight out of high school and was ready yeah, this is how you win a football game. Yeah, I just did this. Or if something went wrong, he was like, yeah, I messed up there and I didn't need to do this. True cutthroat competitor. It wasn't like, well, this guy didn't do this. He just gets up to the mic, and he might be different for some people because he doesn't blame anybody. Sometimes that's what people want, is blame somebody or blame yourself, and he just tells you as it is. So it makes you kind of feel uncomfortable.
The last flowers that I want to give Sayin is after the Big Ten Championship game, some reporter asked him a question about a critical play in the red zone where they threw a pass and it was incomplete. And I remember the play. And they asked Sayin a question about why this play didn't work. And Sayin just goes, well, it's on me. I need to do better. And then Ryan Day was sitting next to his quarterback, and I could see Day kind of trying to bite his tongue sometimes if you got a player, if you had a son or a daughter, and they're trying to do the right thing and be a leader and take responsibility for a situation, Day was sitting there, kind of bit his tongue, and then Day jumped in and goes, look, that play was covered really well. Nobody was open. I don't think there's anything Julian could have done better here. But Sayin has the humility and the leadership, true leadership quality in a tough situation to say, hey, I'm the quarterback. I take responsible for what happens. And that's why he's going to grow and improve as a player coming into the 2026 season. Ohio State fans should be very excited about this passing attack, which was already one of the best in the country last year. The sky's the limit for Julian Sayin. I think this kid, he's top notch. There's not many I'd take ahead of him. I don't know how many you could think of. Although one that some people might take ahead of him, we're going to go to number 2 on our list of projected Big Ten quarterback production in the 2026 season. This does not just take into account total yards or total touchdown passes. We established our 2025 Big Ten composite passing rankings based off of important game situations in games that matter the most against the best talent and against conference opponents. And number 2 on the list, a guy that some people think might be better than Julian Sayin this year, is Dante Moore from the Oregon Ducks. Moore had 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Completed over 70% of his passes last year. Not quite as good as Mr. Sayin, who was at one point late in the year, I think he was at like 78%. It didn't end up being that high for Sayin, but look, Moore was fantastic last year despite his wide receivers being injured and dinged up all season long. It started at the beginning of the year with Evan Stewart messing his knee up, I think in July before fall camp even started. I want to say this about Dante Moore. Look, I've heard people dog on Dante Moore because of turnovers against Texas Tech. Nobody ran the ball well against Texas Tech all year, and that included the vaunted Oregon Duck rushing attack, which was one of the best in the country last year. So I felt like Moore got put in a position where he really had to make chicken salad out of chicken shit in terms of like quick passing game, throwing screen passes, and just trying to figure out a way to matriculate the ball down the field, as the great Hank Stram said once upon a time. Some games, Coach Drew, as a pitcher, you're not going to strike everybody out. You just got to figure out a way to get outs and get your team a win. And I felt like Dante Moore did a good job of that in the Texas Tech game, while I've heard other people say, that he didn't play well. Well, when you can't run the ball and you're in what was a low-scoring game for most of the game, obviously it was low-scoring for Texas Tech because I don't think they scored at all, but you just have to do what you can to win the game, and I thought Moore did a good job of that. Obviously, Dante Moore was considered by some one of the top quarterback prospects that could have declared after this year, but I think the college football playoff game against Indiana talked him out of that, him, his agent, his people. But again, I question game planning by Oregon's coaching staff. When you've got your coordinators on the way out to go take other head coaching jobs, are they really 100% invested in this game plan? What kind of problems or confusion does that create? Because the first play from scrimmage, throwing the pass to the flat against D'Angelo Pons, to me, that's bad play calling. Just like Julian Sayin's RPO pass that got pick 6 by Keontae Scott against Miami was bad play calling. If you look at Jimmy's and Joe's and not just X's and O's, and look at not just is this play sound on a chalkboard or on a grease board, but is this play sound when we're challenging the best players on the other side of the football. The impact of the coordinators on the way out the door worked poorly for Ohio State and Oregon last year in the playoff. Moore was third in passing touchdowns amongst Big Ten quarterbacks versus Big Ten opponents last year. He was third in quarterback rating versus Big Ten opponents last year. He was fifth in yards per attempt versus ranked opponents. And you got to consider, Coach Drew, the ranked opponents that Oregon played last year. They played Indiana twice. Just like when we get down the road here and look at Indiana's composite rankings from last year, they played Oregon twice, and they played Miami, and they played Ohio State. So these composite rankings that we did, Coach Drew, they're a lot harder on the teams on the top end that made the CFP because the competition they played is even stiffer, which is what makes it impressive what Dante Moore did when you look at the opponents that they had to play against with a wide receiver room that was literally not healthy all year, and starts out with a freshman in Decorium Moore, who had a great year, by the way, as your number one receiver. I expect continuity in this offense because Dan Lanning hired new coordinators from within the system. I've heard some people express concern over changing coordinators. I don't see any hiccups there for the Ducks. I really don't. In fact, in the playoff, should they make it there next year, which I expect them to, they might be better off because these new coordinators that they hired from within are not going to be looking to go to a different program. They should have a coaching staff that's locked in for the whole year next year. They're going to start out with a healthy receiver room with Evan Stewart back, with Decorium Moore back, with Gary Bryant back, with Iverson Hooks from UAB. If you guys haven't seen Iverson Hooks yet, go watch some tape on this kid. This kid is a freaking baller, Iverson Hooks. Ducks fans are going to love watching him play, and so am I. This Oregon passing game and offense in general is just, it's going to be tough for Lanning as a young coach. This is going to be the most pressure that they face, because with this roster returning, which we've talked about in other episodes, they've got the best returning roster in college football, and it only upgraded. They don't have, besides a couple O-line spots who weren't their best players at offensive tackles last year, they have almost all of their meaningful production back. They lost Kenyon Sadiq, but they've got Jamari Johnson back at tight end, who is a bigger target, might be a better red zone threat, maybe not a better overall player. Sadiq was a great blocker and a great pass catcher, versatile guy, hell of an athlete, will have a good NFL career. Dude, I think this Oregon offense is going to be electric next year, with the guys that they have in and the guys that they have back. This Oregon team might be my favorite to win the national championship next year. It's too early for me to say that right now. Coach Drew, what are your thoughts about Dante Moore in this passing game for the Ducks going into 2026?
Yeah, with guys like Hooks coming in, you're just going to see some things that need to improve from last year. And I think we saw it come college football playoffs. When they played against IU for the second time, I mean, we made the joke, like, I mean, obviously you're an IU fan, but we had some bias, but we wanted, the best team to win so we can cover it. Me being a Notre fan. Dante Moore, we were making jokes about him throwing ducks at the end of the IU game. Like, no, Dante Moore's going to come back. He's going to prove he wants to be the number 1 overall pick. He's going to beat Fernando Mendoza. And it just did not happen. And I do believe, with this whole situation, this is a pressure point moment for Dan Lanning. Can he get it right? I don't want to say he does get injured, but if he does get injured, there is a Heisman caliber quarterback that we followed a lot as his backup. Welcome to the transfer portal.
Well, the best depth at quarterback in the country is unquestionably in Eugene, Oregon, without a doubt, with Dylan Raiola, the Boba Fett clone of Patrick Mahomes, suiting up this year for the Ducks, holding the clipboard, obviously. But yeah, you can't tell me anything negative about this Oregon roster right now. This Oregon roster is incredible headed into next season. And more, think about this, Coach Drew. There's not one player in college football that has more incentive to work his ass off in the offseason and improve on every hook, nook, and cranny of his game than Dante Moore, who has a chance to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next year. That's kind of why I look at Moore and you're like, could their passing game be as good as Ohio State's? Could it be better? Like, you could definitely make an argument that Moore is going to just work like a banshee this offseason, because just look at what's in front of him. Incentive, Coach Drew, drives performance in every facet of life.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's just the way we have to look at this quarterback position. You just have to continue to drive.
The Ducks are loaded for bear in 2026, but you know who else is loaded for bear in 2026, Coach Drew?
Did he get his last name changed recently?
Yeah, this kid might be getting his last name changed. We're moving on to top quarterbacks for 2026. Our number 3 ranked projection for production in the passing game, production meaning what you do on meaningful downs, what you do against conference opponents, what you do against ranked opponents, is Josh Hoover, soon to be known as Josh Hoosier for the Indiana Hoosiers. They were first in our 2025 composite rankings, power rankings for Big Ten passing game effectiveness. Obviously, Hoover comes in the transfer portal from Texas Christian. Don't worry, Hoosier fans, they call Cignetti the quarterback whisperer for a reason. The main knock on Josh Hoover has been interceptions, but that was the knock on Mendoza, who, all right, let's go back to what Cignetti's been able to do with transfer portal quarterbacks. They got Tino Sinceri back from UCLA to coach quarterbacks offense this year. You had Curtis Rourke in 2024, was all Big Ten, came from the Ohio Bobcats. You had Mendoza last year, obviously won the Heisman. Those are one-year quarterbacks with Cignetti, but those are not the only two. This goes back to his time at Elon, his time at IU of Pennsylvania, and related to Indiana University Bloomington. They've had basically at least an all-conference quarterback who has been a one-year guy, like 5 out of the 6 years has Cignetti's coaching staff. So whatever issues that Hoover has had with interceptions can and will be healed and corrected by Cignetti and this Indiana coaching staff. Let's take a comparison, Coach Drew, between Josh Hoover and Fernando Mendoza. So for argument's sake, and I would say this is true, I think most people in the audience would say this is true, save for maybe a little bit here, a little bit there. Let's say that Fernando Mendoza is physically a better athlete at quarterback than Josh Hoover. He's bigger, he's taller, he's heavier, maybe has a stronger arm. Let's say that this is true. Fernando Mendoza has some more physical ability than Josh Hoover. Hoover has far more proven production and experience in Power 4 football coming in to Curt Cignetti's offense than Mendoza did coming in. This is a much more experienced player. He's been a 3-year starter. He's got almost 10,000 passing yards, Coach Drew. 71 touchdown passes in his career. You tighten that up with better quarterback coaching. You tighten it up with a good receiver core, with one of the nation's best offensive lines, which certainly resides in Bloomington, Indiana. We'll talk about that when we get to top Big Ten offensive line units, which we'll have coming out shortly for you guys. Proven production is what Cignetti looks for in his transfer portal equation. Josh Hoover is the definition of proven production and proven ability. Hoover's footwork, pocket presence, and quick release are a perfect fit for Cignetti's offense. Cignetti definitely, unlike a lot of our neighbors to the south in the Southeastern Conference, values a quarterback who can operate from within the pocket a lot more than he does a guy who can run. We all love a quarterback who can run, but that is not Cignetti's. That is not the first priority as a guy that wins the track meet. It's the guy that can make reads, make good decisions, take care of the football, get it out on time, and that is definitely Josh Hoover. And I will say about Hoover, he's not going to get the triple option badge on College Football 27 next year, but he has the vision and enough athletic ability when teams give him an opportunity to scramble for first downs that he is able to do that. So he's not a complete statue back there. And he's going to have plenty of weapons to work with when he gets to Bloomington, Coach Drew. You got Omar Becker and Nick Marsh. Nick Marsh, the Michigan State transfer, hands like All-State. Great offensive line play. I expect Indiana to win or at least be a finalist for the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in college football in 2027. They've got 3.5 starters back on the offensive line, plus an all-conference level guy and Joe Bruner from the Wisconsin Badgers. You're going to have a solid run game to keep defenses balanced, and that makes life really easy for a quarterback. What Mendoza had last year in terms of running game, Indiana will have again this year, and we're going to talk about running back rooms here pretty soon. You guys will hear that, but here's the question, I guess, if you have to ask a question going into the year, because Mendoza started a little slow last year, being new. Like, you know, his early first game against Old Dominion was not his best game of the year. He's talked about that in interviews many times. But how long does it take Hoover to get with his teammates, get cohesion, kind of gel with the receiving core and learn this offense? Their first the Big Ten home openers on September 26th against Northwestern Wildcats, and a lot of you guys are like, oh, Northwestern Wildcats, meow, who cares? Northwestern's going to be a pretty solid team next year, so it's going to be interesting in this September 26th matchup to see where Hoover is in this Cignetti offense and see how he's doing with his receivers, because I think Northwestern is going to field at least a very competent Big Ten defense. So that'll be the first test we get to see for Mr. Hoover in Bloomington. What do you think, Coach Drew?
Yeah, I mean, just to see like Chip Kelly and Thor and Aiden Childs.
Right.
Like, those are some of the factors that people might be overlooking. Like, Northwestern has a new stadium that they're releasing this year. It's a beautiful stadium. Surprising Chicago got it done. Oh, wait, Chicago had no part with it, I don't think. There's a lot of political things going on in my area.
It's Chicago. Drew knows what I did there. Anyway.
Right, back to the Midnight Ballerina talk.
Midnight Ballerinas.
Josh Hoover is coming into a situation where a team has won a national championship who, for a long time, was a running joke in college football, and now not only does he get to come in and the project's completely built, it's like, well, you got to continue to run the factory. Josh Hoover is coming in to throw to Charlie Becker from Tennessee. I mean, it's gonna be fun next year for this team. I'm curious how fast this grows. This might be the first time. Well, I can tell you it's the first time because we just had the Heisman winner. But it would be really interesting to see if Indiana can get back-to-back Heisman winners. I mean, just for the memes alone, I don't know. I think ESPN would shut down if Indiana wins again. Or even if another Big Ten team wins a national championship, ESPN might have to cease to exist.
They're already lobbying in various media outlets. I've heard like alleged op-eds. It's like opinion. ESPN should buy the rights to Big Ten football coverage. Which, look, if you know ball, you know ball. If you don't, like, I'll fill you in here. If you're not aware of the Big Ten network contract, which pays the Big Ten Conference by far more than anybody else, including what ESPN pays the Southeastern Conference teams. There's no way the Big Ten is going to sell their media rights to ESPN. There's just absolutely no fucking way that's going to happen. But it's already being thrown out there because SEC SEC-ESPN is salty that as soon as they got the media rights, that college football, well, the Southeastern Conference has turned into a basketball conference, Coach Drew, and a hell of a basketball conference it is right now. But the best football conference in America resides north of the Mason-Dixon line, which most of the listeners of this show already know. Yeah, you go back to the whole Mendoza, Hoover, Curtis Rourke conversation about these one-year quarterbacks. Curtis Rourke was like second or third team All-Big Ten, depending on who you ask. He played the whole season with a torn ACL. He had a partially torn ACL the whole year, which came out when he went to work out for NFL teams. They're like, oh, when did you tear your ACL? He's like, oh, like 8 months ago. So Cignetti takes a guy from a MAC school and turns him into an all-Big Ten quarterback when he's playing on one leg. What do you think he's going to do with a hyper-talented guy like Hoover, who I'm assuming is going to come in healthy? Knock on wood, fingers crossed. The Hoosiers passing game is going to be sick in 2026. You know who else is going to have a pretty good passing game, Coach Drew, in 2026?
Who's going to have another one?
Our sometime friends, sometimes enemies out there in Southern Cal, the USC Trojans, who return Jaden Maiava. We've got them ranked number 4 for predicted production in passing game in 2026, the Southern Cal Trojans. They were number 3 in our 2025 composite rankings, our power rankings for Big Ten passing game, which is mostly based on what you did on certain downs and distances at key points in the game against conference opponents and against ranked opponents. Coach Drew, I got to say this about Maiava, even though you're a Notre Dame fan, I'm an IU guy. We're not USC fans on this show per se, but I got to say that Maiava might be the best over-the-shoulder deep ball passer in the country, or at least he was last year. Now with Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, maybe that makes life easier, but I'm going to say this guy's a surgeon from the pocket. He's totally comfortable in there. He knows how to navigate the pocket. He's got great footwork. And this guy is underrated as a scrapper, Coach Drew, and as a competitor. The play he had against Northwestern last year, which, by the way, was a close game, at least through the first half, where he throws an interception on a screen pass to a defensive lineman from Northwestern. I assume most of you guys have seen it. We're probably going to put it on the screen for you right here. He throws an interception to like a 290-pound defensive tackle, then runs him down as the kid's about to score a touchdown for Northwestern. And Maiava, who's all of about 6 foot and 190 pounds, lays a hit on this kid for Northwestern and forces a fumble to save a touchdown. Maiava is a guy that you would love to have as a teammate. He's a guy you would love to coach because he is just a top-notch competitor who's willing to put his body on the line. He also has those skills as a pocket passer, as a deep throw guy. Last year he was 4th in total touchdowns versus Big Ten opponents amongst Big Ten quarterbacks. He was 1st in 3rd and medium conversions, Coach Drew. 3rd and medium helps you win championships. If you're in 3rd and long a lot, you're not winning a championship. This guy is one of the best 3rd down quarterbacks in all of college football. He was 3rd in yards per attempt versus ranked opponents amongst all Big Ten quarterbacks, and he was 4th in quarterback ranking versus Big Ten opponents. This guy did some of that in games. Also, Drew, that does not count the game that me and you watched against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish live at Notre Dame Stadium, where he threw for 300-plus yards against a very talented Notre Dame defense. Maiava is legit. I think the only knock on him going to the pros, not that we're doing purely an NFL scouting video here, is that he's not the biggest. I don't know if he has the best raw arm strength, but he is a deep throw artist. He'll put it over the shoulder, drop it in a bucket. If you get somebody who can take the top off the defense, he can deliver the ball to him. Now, let's talk about Lane and Lemon leaving. Those guys are both going to be in the NFL next year. Replacing those two receivers is no small task, and we're not making light of that. We saw that in the Alamo Bowl loss against TCU, where Josh Hoover also did not play for TCU because he was in the portal. The timing and rhythm was a little off there when Maiava had to go without his stud receivers, but dude, you're going to go through spring ball with the new guys and get it timed up. I'll tell you what they got next year, Coach Drew. For one thing, they have five-star freshman tight end Mark Bowman from Mater Dei High School. Mater Dei High School's put a lot of guys, not just to become USC Trojans, have a lot of success, has put a lot of guys in the NFL. They also return wide receiver Tanook Hines, who had 34 catches for 560 yards last year. Tanook Hines is nothing to sneeze at. His role in the offense is obviously going to expand. You also got North Carolina State transfer Terrell Anderson, who had 600-plus yards and 5 touchdowns. The cupboard is not bare at receiver here, Coach Drew. I've heard some people talk about this Mark Bowman kid from Mater Dei, and they think he's an instant difference maker at the college level. I watched some of his high school tape. I think he's about 6'5". He's definitely an athlete. You can tell defenses are scared to play, like they play off of him like he's a wide receiver and he's a tight end. I wasn't impressed with some of the coverages he played against, but he's definitely got the athletic ability. He's definitely got the swagger. I don't remember the last time I saw a high school kid, especially a tight end, who talks more shit than this Mark Bowman kid does. Yeah. He's all Hollywood, though, dude. He's going to fit in good at Southern Cal, I'll tell you. And, Jaden Maiava, number 4 in projected production amongst 2026 Big Ten quarterbacks. And he topped 3,700 yards that he had last year. I'll bet he could top 24 touchdowns. He had 24 touchdowns last year. I think he can top it, especially if the Trojans get their running game ironed out a little bit. They were banged up at running back a lot last year. King Miller, the walk-on, ends up getting a starting job there, which is a pretty cool story. They're going to be deeper at running back, so you expect more run-pass balance out of the Trojans. I think Maiava is going to have a help.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to have a good year, I do believe. He's in a good situation. They've produced some top quarterbacks in the NFL right now and in the past. I mean, coming as a Notre Dame fan, I hate USC, but they do produce some quarterbacks. I mean, they did produce the Iceman, which we all have to just bow our heads to, which is funny because some people just, when you go to the NFL, sometimes you get a blessing, and that was my blessing. He was redeemed when he became a Chicago Bear. Not for everybody. Some people believe even if you played at USC and you play for the Colts or another program, you're still a bad person. So we know who we're talking about.
If Lincoln Riley does one thing well besides disguising his backup quarterback as a punter, it's design passing game and producing the passing game. He's been doing it since Oklahoma. Maiava's going to have a hell of a 2026. Another player, all right, this is kind of a question mark, Coach Drew. This is where I might have to wear one later for standing up for a guy that maybe I shouldn't be standing up for. We're talking about Damon Williams, Washington Huskies, on our list of top quarterbacks in the Big Ten for 2026. So Damon Williams is coming off a little drama, Coach Drew. Damon Williams had a big leap in production in his sophomore year. Let's go back in time, Coach Drew. In 2024, when Damon Williams was a freshman, a prize recruit that Jed Fish reeled in, pun intended there with Mr. Fish reeling in the recruit, he said, Damon Williams is the face of our program, the face of Washington Husky football. We fast forward going into the 2026 season. Williams had signed an NIL revenue share deal with Washington, then tried to hit the transfer portal after he signed the NIL deal, which led the Washington Huskies to file a little lawsuit against him. And now Damon Williams is back at UW. So I'm going to project Williams' production this year as if everything's cool. There's no salt in the wound with Jed Fish and the Washington Athletic Department. This might be a big assumption, but Damon Williams is a talented quarterback. The Washington Huskies were number 7 in our 2025 composite power ranking statistics among Big Ten quarterbacks. Let's look at the jump he had from his freshman year in 2024, where he split time with Rodgers, who was an older quarterback who was kind of a placeholder. Fish was trying to get Williams as many reps as he could without putting too much pressure on him. He played in, I think, 11 games. Maybe he played in 12. I might be wrong. But he had 8 touchdowns and 1 interception as a spot player. You fast forward to last year, 2025, his sophomore year, he had 25 touchdowns and 8 interceptions and had the reins of this offense. He had huge growth in his field vision and pocket awareness going from his freshman year to his sophomore year. This kid's got terrific mobility and escapability. He really knows when to take off and run. It's not his first go-to, but he knows how to do it effectively. He can definitely beat you with his legs. At 5'11", a $190, this guy's not like your prototype NFL quarterback, but he can definitely sling it. And his size is not slowing him down from producing at the college level. Last year, he was 4th in the Big Ten in touchdown passes versus Big Ten opponents. He was 6th in quarterback rating versus Big Ten opponents. Now, he needs to improve a little bit on third down, and I would like to see him produce a little better against ranked opponents, which, they struggled against Ohio State last year, but I will stand up for Damon in this respect that the Washington Husky run game with Jonah Coleman last year was very inconsistent. I didn't think that the blocking was really good. I thought it was pretty inconsistent. I think that their run game coordination / strategy was not very good. And so when you look at a lack of third down production from the Huskies and from Damon Williams, you look at, well, how often are they in third and long versus third and medium? Because they're not staying in phase with the change. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to put all that on Damon Williams, but I do think for him to achieve at his highest level, their run game, the support he gets out of the running game's got to be a lot better this year. If the drama from the lawsuit doesn't continue, I expect Damon to continue to grow in this system. It'll be his 3rd year, same head coach, I believe same offensive coordinator, and he's going to at least put up numbers that put him in a conversation to make some all Big Ten teams. You lost Denzel Boston to the NFL, but you know what you have back, Coach Drew? You got back Rashid Williams from injury. And you got a talented freshman class. You got Jordan Clay, who was an All-American Bowl Offensive Player of the Year. You got Trez Davis coming in, Coach Drew. I love this quote. Trez Davis is only 6 feet tall, but he plays like he's 6'5". I'll take that one, Coach Drew. He's 6 foot. He plays like he's 6'5". So you got some studs coming in the passing game. The recruiting at the top end is good for Washington. The roster construction is good at the top end for Washington. I think, though, similar to the USC Trojans, I don't think they have the depth that you see, obviously, at Oregon or Ohio State, but even at Indiana. They have a few lightning in a bottle type of athletes at different spots, but I'm not sure that they have the depth to really compete for a college football playoff spot, which they were a dark horse last year. But you see how they performed against Ohio State. They don't really hang in there or haven't hung in there against heavyweights. I like Jed Fish as a coach. I like Williams as a quarterback. I think there's potential here, but I think they've got to tighten the run game up if they really want to take a step to get and compete with the top tier of Big Ten opponents.
Yeah, this team definitely is interesting position because we were talking about it. We were hyping them up before we did this rankings. We're like, well, who's the top 5 quarterbacks in the Big Ten? And we're like, oh, here we go. And then nowhere transfer portal. We're like, oh. And then we all went. And then out of nowhere, they're like, well, there's NIL. And then that was like during the whole NIL scandal. Then out of nowhere, he came back and it's like your ex left, went to the club, came back and was like, yeah, I guess I could stay at home. I have a home here. Why do I got to go to a new guy's home?
You see your girlfriend on Instagram posting selfies with another dude, and you're like, you just signed a lease to live here with me. And she's like, well, yeah, I guess I did. Yeah,
I guess I could live here for 2 years, or at least a year.
How long is the lease again? Yeah, I mean, with Williams, you never know. You never know with these kids now, whether they've got a professional agent or they've got Unc. Unc is their agent. Maybe mommy's their agent. You don't know. They're like,
I do know.
Somebody.
They have a lot of professional groups out there, but yeah, it's definitely.
You got the kid signs a deal, and then his mom or his uncle or Billy Bob or whoever calls him on the phone, like, "Hey, Damon, we're going to South Carolina." I'm just making up a school, and he's like, "Oh, I just had lunch with Coach Fish. I thought I was playing at UW next year." Nah, kid, pack your bags. We got you a better deal. It's like, where does this shit come from? I don't know how they think they're going to get away with it, but I'm not blaming it on Williams. I wasn't there. I don't know all the details, but it is pretty hilarious. This is just a new drama of modern college football. I do want to say, I think some other quarterbacks to keep an eye on. I think Caton Hauser at Illinois is going to have a good year. I think Illinois' wide receiver room is being really slept on. I know they lost their number one from last year, who I really liked a lot. But I think Illinois' passing game could be huge next year. I think Malik Washington, speaking of NIL money, keeping a guy on campus. Malik Washington, if you haven't watched Maryland, watch him sling the ball around a little bit. This kid's got big league ability. I don't think Maryland is going to be much better next year than they were this year, although we'll see. This is a way too early rankings type of episode we're doing. Malik Washington, though, fun to watch. We'll see what Aiden Childs does with the Northwestern Wildcats. I know I'm forgetting one. Yeah, I think Caton Hauser, for me, the East Carolina transfer, could be really big at Illinois this year. But as we said earlier in the episode, I'm going to tend to give the nod to the guy who's coming back with the same coach in the same system in the similar to the same situation. But, dude, the Big Ten is absolutely loaded with quarterback talent. There's no doubt about that.
That is true. There is a lot of quarterbacks coming out of the Big Ten that we should be really excited about. I mean, we have Mendoza, who's going to probably be drafted here shortly. I mean, we had Will Howard last year, who might get an opportunity to play for the Steelers. There's just a lot of quarterbacks that have come out of the Big Ten that people are just like, wait, he came out of the Big Ten? And now any USC quarterback's out of the Big Ten. Caleb Williams is out of the Big Ten.
Caleb Williams, dude, the Bears were a great story this year in the NFL. Yeah, dude, I think the quarterback depth in the Big Ten is just head and shoulders above the SEC. I just don't. I'm not saying there's not talent in the SEC, but like we talked about earlier, some of these SEC teams, they throw a quarterback out there because he's got a strong arm and he could like run track or run high hurdles, and it's like, can he throw the ball from the pocket? Do you have a coherent game plan that he can execute? I just think coaching, they say in the SEC, it just matters more. I think in the Big Ten, coaching matters more. And you can see that in the way these quarterbacks execute on Saturday, Coach Drew.
Yeah, that's an absolute fact. Definitely coming into the season, like we talked about before with Georgia, where they talk about matching up with the player, not the actual scheme. That's just now